The end of the day, if you're a police officer, you have the authority and you have the ability to remove someone's liberty from them and, if need be, take their life. That we all understand. Okay, so if we put that box all the way back here, how do we have an interaction with this person at a traffic stop, at, you know, a disorderly, at a domestic situation? How do we have these interactions that don't lead to us having to shoot this person? So let me give some back context here, right? So I've been following this guy. He's a police officer. He seems like he's probably in his early to mid 30s, and this dude is legit. His tactics, the training information that he's putting out is top notch. And this guy seemingly has come out of nowhere, but he has a growing channel. The information that he puts out from a tactical standpoint is top notch. Okay, so I've been following this guy, and he's a white guy, and he had a conversation on a podcast where he was talking about Breonna Taylor. And he said in the podcast, he was like, well, absent of any of the political issue that came after that, if you look at the tactics of how that raid was operated, it was done wrong. And there's issues here, there's issues there. And he was one of the first police officers that I had ever heard publicly come out and say what the people did in the execution of that warrant was improper from a tactical standpoint. And that made my ears perk up. I was like, man, like this dude, he's completely different, right? So I started following the guy, and then the other day he had a live stream, and his whole live stream was talking about how police officers don't want to be questioned in terms of the tactics that they use. He was talking about how, when police officers get into an officer-involved shooting on the street, there are things that you can look at where it went south way before the bullets started flying, right? And so he's saying that, like, as an instructor, when he's talking to these police officers and he's saying, look, this is where things went south. If you would have done X, then Y wouldn't have happened. If you would have done Y, then Z wouldn't have happened. That they're obstinate. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear anything that is a different way of thinking, that's a different way of looking at a situation. And so I commented, I said, what you're saying is spot on. I said, but it goes deeper than that. I said, until you guys have a deeper conversation about why certain police officers interact with certain demographics in a certain way, nothing is going to change. And then he responded, what do you mean by that? And I was like, okay, well, he asked, right? I said, it goes deeper than that. Like, if you guys can't talk about how you view being a police officer versus the citizen, everything that you're talking about is tactics. All the way from the gear to how you're approaching the car, where your hand is on your firearm, where you're going to take that shot placement. From the very beginning, you're talking about engaging an American citizen with the utmost violence. You're talking about escalation of force all the way up to deadly force. The conversation is not about how do we have an interaction with this American citizen without it getting to that point. Right? At the end of the day, if you're a police officer, you have the authority and you have the ability to remove someone's liberty from them and, if need be, take their life. That we all understand. Okay, so if we put that box all the way back here, how do we have an interaction with this person at a traffic stop, at, a disorderly, at a domestic situation? How do we have these interactions that don't lead to us having to shoot this person? That conversation's never coming up. And the reason why it's never coming up is because the people that you're generally dealing with historically and systemically, you haven't seen them as equals. Yeah. Okay? And now with social media, and since that attitude has been allowed to permeate for the last 150 years, it's not just happening in the hood. It's not just happening to certain demographics. Now, your grandma's catching it. There's a video of a 60-something-year-old woman having an argument with her boyfriend in the driveway, and they call the cops, and this cop shows up, and he's like, what's the problem? And they're not even like screaming. This isn't like a real ghetto area. The lady looks like, like your mom's sister, like, a nice looking lady. And the cop comes up, what's the problem? She's like, nothing. I'm talking to him. Well, I heard you're being disorderly. Oh, I'm not being disorderly. And you just walked up. I'm not being disorderly. Like, I'm fine. Give me your identification. And before you know it, This police officer is having a knockdown, drag out fight with a 65-year-old woman, punching her in the face, breaking her jaw. The situation became disorderly.
Right.
It became aggressive because the cop escalated the shit.
Yeah.
Now somebody is lying. Either everybody who says police officers are unnecessarily escalating shit, are unnecessarily involved in officer-involved shootings that didn't have to happen, that are unnecessarily putting people in situations where their rights are being violated. Either those people are lying, or every video that you can find on the internet is lying.
Right.
Because both can't be wrong. Now, if I was a police officer in that situation and I was a good cop, if I was a good police officer, I would be screaming from the rooftops, that is not okay. That is not okay. That is not okay. And I would be calling for changes for training that relates to interacting with people.
Right.
Kind of like I do on this channel. Because the idea around security guards is what? That we're fucking crazy. That we overdo it. That we don't understand our limitations. That we're doing too much, right? That's literally what people call typical security guard behavior, which is why I started a fucking YouTube channel called A Typical Security Guard. Because I try to do things differently.